We would like to welcome all of you here today. It's pretty cool that we get to attend this GlenX Expo with our schools together.
And this is actually the first time all of our schools are together without competing in anything.
When you were a little kid and you thought about being something incredible, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be Buzz Lightyear.
Well, you have a few more years here. What would you like to have as a career? Are you thinking about that?
Well, that's a little bit far away, but I plan to explore some options at the expo today.
Well, maybe if this Career Expo was a thing when I was in 10th grade, I would have a better idea of what I wanted to do with my future.
Well, good news for all of you that are still thinking about this, because today, the Career Expo can provide some answers.
Next, our speaker will be Kimberly McCleary from Harriman Construction.
Hi, my name's Kimberly McCleary, and I'm a project manager for a construction firm. And as a project manager, I oversee multiple tasks that involve construction. And as many of you may have noticed, I am in fact a woman, and I work in a male-dominated field. And today I'm particularly interested in trying to get some of you to think about construction as a career. And I'm really interested in getting the women in the audience today to think about construction as a career. In fact, I've been looking at you since the start of this morning. When I left high school, I never thought I'd end up in construction. In fact, I had the opportunity to attend college, and I got a bachelor's degree in science, and I studied natural resources. I was determined to go and work at ski resorts and in national parks. And so after college, I quickly jumped on a plane and headed to California and got a job in Squaw Valley, which is in Lake Tahoe. And I really wanted to work for a hotel, but it didn't work out. And I found an opportunity running a photo video concession. It's in the old days when there were no digital cameras, and we took pictures of people on the mountain. And I also, within 6 months, had the opportunity to run the bungee tower. It was an 80-foot bungee jumping tower, and for 2 years I managed roughly over 20 people, and that's what I did. And I hadn't really thought about my career for a while. The owners of those companies decided to sell them, and I was forced to look for another opportunity. So I found an opportunity in an architecture firm. I had always been interested in buildings, and I thought, maybe I want to go back to school and become an architect. And I very quickly discovered I did not want to be an architect. I loved buildings, but I did not want to create the details. It wasn't for me. So I decided that it was time to move on from my life at ski resorts, and I headed down to San Francisco. And in those days, San Francisco was a hotbed of opportunity. It was what was called the dot-com days, and it was the first time that the internet was coming into everyone's daily lives in business and consumerism. And I got a job with a software company as a receptionist. And 6 months after I obtained that job, the controller of the company came to me and said, would you have any interest in running facilities or doing real estate for us in the US? And I said yes, and I knew nothing about this career. And a couple weeks later, he called me into his office and he said, hey, Kimberly, I need you to get on a plane 2 days from now, fly to New York, and look for new offices and real estate for us in New York City. I said, absolutely. I walked out of his office. I panicked. I knew nothing about commercial real estate. I had just made him a commitment. So I did what any normal person would do. I went to the closest bookstore. I bought a book on real estate. I got on the plane and I read the book from San Francisco to New York. The next morning I got up, and for the next 2 days I toured New York City. I didn't know the city at all. I looked at all these real estate and offices, and I took a ton of notes, and I barely said a word to the brokers that I was hanging out with because I was so nervous. So when I got back to San Francisco, I compiled all my notes together, and I had to send them off to the CEO of the company. I was pretty sure my career was over, and I didn't think that I had anything to offer this company, and by some miracle, they really liked what I had to say. And the controller came back to me and said, we want you to run facilities in the US. And what that meant is that I got the opportunity to travel around the US, and I even traveled internationally, and I started opening offices for us. I started doing real estate transactions, working with builders and designers to create these offices, and then I was reading real estate contracts. And for the next several years I did this, and I left the software industry and I went to a toy company. And I was tired of my career and I was really frustrated. And I had the opportunity, somebody approached me and said, how about going into construction? And I thought they were absolutely crazy. I didn't think women entered construction, and I thought I had nothing to offer them as well. And I went and interviewed, and I very quickly learned that I had a lot of interest in construction. I loved facilities, I loved building, I loved projects, and I loved organizing things. So I took the job. And for the last 15 years, I've worked in the construction industry. It's allowed me the flexibility to bring teams together, to accomplish goals, and do what I enjoy. I think that this is a tremendous career for women. I think there's so much opportunity out there because we're natural leaders, we're multitaskers, and we have the ability to bring teams together. And I want to leave you with two thoughts, and this is for everybody in the room. Your gender does not define your career opportunities, and that's really important. And it's more true now than ever. And male-dominated fields, there are so many opportunities for women in there now, and we've broken down so many glass ceilings. And I hope you all think about that as you move forward in your careers. And finally, the last note is, your career is a journey, and you have to take risks, and don't be afraid to take risks and ask people for help and ask questions. Sometimes opportunities present themselves in the strangest places. And most importantly, enjoy the ride because it really will all work out in the end. Thank you.